Hello and welcome back. Now today's video is another Triumph modification video, preparing it largely for the Mallee Mile and a little bit of green laning. So there are a few jobs that I've started and wanted to review them and see how I got along with them, mainly the foot pegs and the exhaust. I've decided I like both of them, so today I need to make the foot pegs a little bit stronger by adding a few gussets, and I'd like to modify the exhaust a little bit and also add a bracket up the back. So I've just got here and my exhausts are still too hot to touch, which means it'd be a better idea to start with the footrests. Now I've had a chance to ride these for a couple of weeks now, and positioning wise they feel exactly the same as the original foot pegs, which is great because I get along really well with those. The added grip is definitely a bonus. You can definitely feel it biting into your Doc Martens a little bit better. So I put some pretty good welds in there, some pretty big welds, and they should be fairly strong. But I still like to strengthen them a little bit more because I'm not sure they stand the test of time, standing on the pegs, hitting bumps and rocks, things like that. So today I basically want to get in there and add in a few gussets, neaten them up and make them a permanent strong addition. So basically I'm going to take them off and assess what is the best way to add some strength, add some gussets. But before I can do that I need to get them off the bike, and that's going to involve taking off the sump guard. So I'm going to take all that lot over and I can have a little look at the foot pegs and see what's going on there. Right, so I've removed the foot pegs and basically nothing immediately jumps out on me at how to make these a little bit more structurally sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the actual pegs so that I've just got this bracket here. I'm also going to clean up the welds with the grinder and hopefully that will give me a little bit more of a clearer view on where I can put these gussets. So I've been around with my grinder and I've just cleaned up those welds, smoothed them out, and basically what that's allowed me to do is just get a little bit more space, take the kind of excess weld off, and then I can work out where I want to put my gusset, which I have. So basically this is not the optimum position for a gusset in terms of the force. It's going downwards. Where I'm going to put the gusset is kind of going diagonally, but it should add enough strength. If anything, it's probably for peace of mind, because that probably should be strong enough, but I'd like to go a little bit stronger. So I've made up these little templates out of cardboard, and that will slot in there like so. Might not look like a lot, but really once you've welded that in, that's a pretty solid footrest. So that should be all good. I've done the same for the other side. So what's next is to translate those templates over to my steel. For that I've got, I think this is about 3, maybe 3.5 mil thick steel, so it's pretty serious stuff just from the offcuts bin. So I'm going to transfer the template onto the metal, cut it out, and I should be able to go ahead and weld them in. So I've just finished up on the gussets and I'm pretty pleased with them. I've smoothed them in just to make them a little bit more discreet. There we are. So the difficulty comes with these foot pegs are so different that you can't really have the same shape gusset. You've got to kind of wing it and make one that's going to fit either side appropriately. But I feel much more confident about these, and confidence is a huge thing in improving your riding. So hopefully this will allow me to just go bigger and better with the things I can do on the bike. Now they're not quite ready to go back on yet. I'm going to go and test fit them and make sure nothing bashes into the new gussets, it doesn't foul on anything, but there is another problem. I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. So foot pegs still fit on there nicely, nothing is fouling, which is great, but let's talk about the other problem. So these foot pegs basically sit on a taper, and that's great, it works most of the time. But there have been a few occasions where I've done a wheelie on this, or I've jumped and I've come down with hard impact, and what happens is the foot pegs slip. Now that's, you know, a problem of its own. But what's worse is when this one slips and then puts on the back brake. You don't want to land from a jump with a seized back wheel, which is exactly what happened. So I need to work out a way of basically stopping these from slipping. I still want to maintain using the original taper system, but I just want to make it so that they can lock in position and I won't have to worry about that. So I think what is best to do is I'm going to take some of this 6mm rod and bend it into a shape that I can weld on the underside of where the foot pegs mount. And I'll basically run it so that it hits or is close to hitting this bolt for the frame here. And that way it still gives me a little bit of adjustment, but it's never going to go all the way down and give me any real grief. Right, so I've finished welding up the little rods onto the bottom, and I've painted them as well. Hopefully you guys understand how this is going to work. I'm not sure how well the camera shows it, but basically, in effect, it's like a steering stop, but for the foot pegs. So hopefully that's going to stop them from slipping after any large impacts. I'm going to go ahead and fit them now, and then I suppose we'll have a look at that exhaust. Right, so foot pegs are back on, as is the bash guard, which means it's time to look at the exhaust. Now, I'm really fond of this pipe. Riding with it has only made me fonder. It sounds absolutely brilliant, and I love how out of the way it is in comparison to the other ones. But I do want to modify it. I need a way of securing it at the rear so that all the pressure isn't on the exhaust stubs that come out the head. That's not good. But looking at this pipe, in comparison to how I laid it onto the bike the other day, it doesn't sit quite as flush as I think it's supposed to. Now, this lovely curve here actually follows the primary chain case very, very nicely, but not right now. And I'm not sure if that's to do with the modified secondary pipe, or whether it's a case of there's a lot of rust and carbon build-up around that pipe and it's just not seating properly. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the exhaust off and just clean the area where the two pipes join, and that way I might be able to reposition it so it's a little bit closer down to the chain case. This is good because if I can do that, then it means I can run it along here and use the pillion foot peg brackets as a way of mounting. So I've removed my exhaust sections, and as you can see, this is the homemade side. Don't know what to say about that really. I kind of like it, but as you can see around here, this is kind of tapered, but it's also covered in a build-up of carbon and I think exhaust putty. And what I'd like to do is basically remove that so I can play around with the positioning of the pipe. Hopefully I can get it a closer fit. This is chromed under here, but honestly, it looks like it's knackered. This bit's hidden by the exhaust anyway, so I'm just going to whiz this off on the wire wheel, get that nice and clean, and then hopefully give me a little bit of room to move around with stuff. So I've cleaned that up. You can see that's actually a tapered piece. That's because it slots into there, so obviously it can't be the same diameter, but it does give me a little bit more room to move it around. So I've done a bit of investigating, and basically this pipe will not sit any further down without modification to this pipe here. Now this has been cut and shut all the way along, but also down the bottom in order to create that taper. They've cut it vertically, bent it in and welded it back together, but they haven't done a very good job. They've left it quite bumpy and it's not a very gradual gradient. I've tried to dress out a lot of those bumps and it's still not fitting right, so I think the only thing I can do now is to cut and shut it myself, And I might be opening up a can of worms here. This might make life far more difficult, but I'm going to give it a go. So I'm going to cut it vertically, bend it inwards a little bit, and then re-weld it together. Okay, so the cutting and shutting actually worked a treat. I did it twice just to get it down a little bit more on diameter, and you can see now it's sitting really quite nicely. I know it's pedantic, but it also shows the little SS I painted on as well. So that is great. The important thing about this is that they sit on the stubs square, otherwise you're not going to get a good seal, and that's just not very good. So I'm really, really pleased that's worked, because quite often when you modify an exhaust, you put it on, you look somewhere and it's not quite right elsewhere, and you have to modify that bit as well. So that's really great. Something I did do in order to do that cut and shut was I actually used a hose clip to just shut that cut, and it worked a treat. So worth doing if you ever have to do anything like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to secure all this lot in place, and I'm going to work out what I'm going to do with the back of the pipe. So I'm guilty of hoarding lots and lots of different pieces of pipe, and now that's secured, I've had time to play around with them all. So I've been playing around with some ideas, you know, whether I wanted it pointing in like that, or up or out, whatever, slash cut, maybe so, but I didn't really fancy any of them. I'm going to be a little bit boring. I'm just going to extend the pipe, just put another straight piece on there. So I've got this piece here, and basically I might cut that down even. I don't want to modify this pipe too much at all because I really, really like it, but I need it extended so that I can have a nice way of mounting a bracket. Brackets can be pretty ugly things, so I'm hoping that I can do one that will come from the back of this piece and follow this piece of the frame down to these guys here, and that should be, you know, quite a discreet way of mounting it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take off some of the chrome on that pipe. I'm just going to tack this in place whilst it's on the bike. Then I'll remove the pipe, do the final welding, sand it all down, grind it all down, and then it'll be time to refit it and work out a way of doing a bracket. Right, so the pipe is extended. Standing back and looking at it, I really like it. I haven't done a great job of it, to be honest. It needs a bit of dressing out with a sander, and I think we'll get away with it. But for now, it'll do. I can do that when I get home. So next thing is the bracket. I've been over to consult the scrap bin and found this lovely bit of flat bar. It's already got a couple of bends in it. Now I might use those bends, I don't know why, but I just kind of like them. But the way I'm going to go about doing this, I'm actually going to drill the holes to mount it first off, and that will give me a point to bend it from, so I can mount it in here, and then I can tweak it, maybe use the scroll dogs or something like that until it's just right, and then I should be able to weld it on the frame, fingers crossed. At a later date I might drill it out and kind of make it look a little bit more racy and that, but we'll see how much you actually notice it. Bracket is all done now. It's looking pretty good, and it holds the exhaust nice and sturdy, which is obviously the main thing. It's not too obtrusive in terms of vision, but I'd still like to drill some holes in it. I'd like it to look sporty, and like it was competition made, but it's going to serve the purpose. So today really has been like a lot of fiddling and a lot of faffing about for not much visual reward. Not much has really changed when you look at the bike, but what this is going to mean is I can have confidence in my machine, I can ride more confidently, and hopefully it can up the amount of things it can do. which ultimately is brilliant. It's been a really strange journey owning this bike, because when I originally got it, I was, quite taken by the looks, and I thought, oh, it probably won't go well off-road. And every time I take it off-road, I'm stunned by how well it performs. It really is very, very good. So to kind of have come to that stage and then think, well, maybe I can take it a little bit further and just iron out a few problems that I've experienced over the last year or two, it's great, because this is finally becoming the capable machine I want it to be. Now, in terms of the Mallet Mile, if you're not aware of what the Mallet Mile is, I suggest you Google it. It is basically a run what you brung off-road event, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I took this last year, I did quite well. This year, doing the modifications, we've got a totally different track. Hopefully it can stand up to its own, but I'm going to want to test ride it before. I'm going to want to take it out greenlanding, so we'll get around to that. But there are a few more things I need to sort out on this bike, and one of those is the gearing. So hopefully next week's episode I can take you through the changes that I make to take this from quite a tame Triumph to something that will wheelie off the line and will spit dust in the air around every corner, which is exciting stuff. So we've actually just hit 400 subscribers on the channel, which is absolutely brilliant. I am well and truly chuffed. So a massive thank you guys for watching. I hope you're enjoying the content, and I'm going to be pushing really, really hard to make sure that I get you guys some good videos, and hopefully this Mallet video, might be a big one, and you guys will really enjoy that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.